In today's mental health check, giving a genuine apology can restore relationships and even help us feel better, but saying sorry too much, it can actually have the opposite effect.
Our guest today says shifting away from saying I'm sorry and instead saying thank you can sometimes have a positive impact on our interactions with others. Family and clinical psychologist Dr. Jennifer Hartstein's here. She'll explain it all. Dr. Jen, let's start with this. How do you know when it is time for an apology versus you don't have to say I'm sorry?
Right. Hard. It's a very fine line sometimes, but generally the rule of thumb that I think about is, did I do something wrong that really is hurtful, right? Was it kind of intentional? Did I step on your foot and really hurt you? Did I do something emotionally that might have hurt you? Did I interrupt something you were doing and it created some sort of problem? So if I did something that created a problem, I have to apologize for that.
What don't you apologize for then?
Well, I think we shift to this idea of thank you when I don't mean that I don't have to apologize, but I want to express appreciation. So if I'm running 15 minutes late, my tendency is to be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry I'm running late, instead of being like, hey, I'm running a little late, thanks for waiting for me, or I really appreciate that you're understanding, or any of that kind of stuff, to recognize that what I'm doing has an impact on you, but it's not hurting you in any way. It's just maybe an inconvenience.
Why do you think people seem to be programmed, if you will, to over-apologize?
Well, I do think that we have been kind of socially monitored in that way. And I think that women tend to apologize way more than men. And I think that there's just kind of the way society has taught that. There's a lot of research and history on this. So I think we're starting to kind of shift it, but it's about getting into your own power and taking up some space.
And so what are some of the things that we can say? You said thank you, and I get what you're saying there about saying I'm grateful to you.
Sure.
But what else can we say instead of always? I mean, I'm so guilty of this. I find myself saying I'm sorry. Even when if someone bumps into me,
right.
I'll say I'm sorry.
I've said I'm sorry bumping into a wall, and then I'm like, no one is even there, but it just like reflexively
There is a reflexive apologizing that we all do. We've all done it, right?
So how do we change?
So how do we change it? So I think, and it's really funny, I've been sending a bunch of emails while I was waiting, and I noticed I was ready to be like, I'm sorry for no, I'm not. Hey, thank you, right? So thank you is your first line of defense. I appreciate the time. I appreciate your patience. Excuse me. You bump into someone or someone bumps into you, excuse me is our default, right? We need to go back to that instead of I'm sorry. So it's an appreciation, not an apology.
When we apologize too much, what's the impact on how it makes us feel?
So think about when you apologize, you kind of make yourself a little smaller, right? And we want to be able to take up space. So I think it impacts our self-esteem, it impacts our confidence, it impacts just how we feel in the world. Because if I'm apologizing all the time, I'm kind of, hi, versus, hey, thank you. I recognize that I have an impact and you have an impact on me.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, if we over-apologize, what does that do to the person we're apologizing to? Because I've done this where you're just repeatedly, I'm sorry, I was late, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to be late, I'm sorry, this happened, that happened, I'm sorry.
You sound like Charlie Brown's teacher after a little while. Like, and for those who don't understand what I mean, it's them womp, 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 womp. It loses its meaning. And so I think we need, an apology needs to be sincere and genuine and honest. And the more I'm over-apologizing to you, it's like flying by my ears. I don't really recognize it as genuine. And so make a real, genuine apology and leave it alone. And the last time we spoke about this, Kate didn't like this answer, but people don't have to accept your apology. So, you can recognize when you need to apologize and just stop there and own the fact that not everything needs to be apologized for.
I didn't like it, to be clear, because I want the other person, like, I want to say, oh, Ellison, I'm sorry, and I want you to say, oh, it's okay. That's what I'm waiting for.
No, right, because our guilt takes over.
Yes.
Our guilt takes over. And the fact of the matter is that, like, I can apologize to you, and then it's up to you to take the time to accept that, and our relationship, if it's strong enough, is going to be fine. And if our relationship is that fragile, we have to question that relationship anyway. So that's a different segment for another day. But, I think that's the key. The key is that if you matter to me, I'm going to apologize. I'm going to apologize once sincerely. If I don't know that I really need to apologize, I'm going to recognize, hey, I appreciate that you understood where I was coming from, and I thank you for that. And we're going to kind of leave it at that.
All right.
I love this
stuff. I do too.
I learned a
Thank you,
lot.
Dr. Jen.
Dr. Jen, thank you so
Appreciate it.
much. Appreciate it.